What's up, y'all? Serrano786 here with some Marvel Avengers Ultimate Tank build. Today we're going to be talking about this tank build that I've been using, going over how I'm speccing as far as stats, what your ideal equipment's going to look like. Keep in mind that I haven't gotten all the items that I want to use for this. So I'm just really going to be talking about the stats and what I've been running so far. And then I have a couple of items that are going to be key to this build that I'll show at the end of the video. Now, before we jump into this, please, if you're new to the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button. Hit that little notification. It does help me out. Thanks to everybody who's been doing it so far. Really appreciate it. Yeah, let's just jump right into this. So as you can see here, my defense rating is pretty insane. My stats, as it's breaking down here, my resolves 232, resilience 225. It's basically revolving around these two stats. And Valor has been my third stat that I've been trying to get when I can. Getting resolve and resilience on items is pretty common. However, not every one of them is going to have Valor, so I've just been making do. But as you can see, my HP, I got an extra 19,415 willpower. My armor's running around 32%. Now that's not including anything else that I get from skills. This is just my base armor. As you can tell, I'm just trying to make my Hulk as chunky as possible, basically. He's going to be a big old chunk boy that's going to be taunting, getting a lot of aggro, and with the items that I eventually want to try to farm, it'll make the damage reduction even further. As you can see here, I just have anything and everything that can have resolve and resilience. I don't really honestly care for the perks itself. This is just mainly for, I'm rolling for the stats at this point. I'm just trying to get to a higher level, so that way I can just start farming the gear, and then that way I know for sure that it's going to drop at 130. If it does have resilience, resolve, and valor like this one, I upgraded all the way just so I can have my power higher. Later on, I'll be hunting for those better perks that I want on the items. But for right now, this is just kind of a quick look at what I'm running for Hulk. Now, as you could tell, I haven't even actually looked at any of these stats, but yeah, it's resolve, resilience, and valor. The valor is really going to help also with your abilities, your heroic and assault and defense and all of that, your ultimate. So that's really good to have a high stat as well. Later on, I'm going to show a video of some of the damage that I'm doing. It's pretty insane. But yeah, anything with a resolve and resilience, if you can get valor, awesome. If not, any other stat is, I guess, just going to be a filler stat, to be completely honest, because this really revolves around your abilities. Now, for the ISOs, or the artifacts rather, my minor artifacts, I'm running an orange ISO. As you can see, it has all resolve. And then the other one, a black ISO, which has all resilience. The trick to this, to get these, you can actually manually change your date to the next date and just keep going to the vendors and just farming that way until you get the one that you want. Pretty easy. You just got to actually manually change your date to tomorrow and just go in and talk to the vendors. So we're going to talk about abilities now. Start with the support heroic ability, the Bone Shaker. I opted for an increased time duration when I kill 5 enemies, just so that way I can keep my armor higher. These other two, I mean, it kind of just depends on what you're doing. If you're having trouble surviving, you can do the willpower. The rage, I guess if you're more focused on the rage into things, that'd be okay. I opted for just a longer duration so I can have that passive armor with that ability just a little bit longer. Yeah, but it just kind of depends on what you're doing. If you're mobbing or if you're going to be fighting bosses, something like that. It just kind of really all depends. The other ability I chose was that anybody that is affected by the taunt and is killed while this is active drops a heroic orb. Now, you'll see later on in the video how this works. So what I'll show later is basically I'll pop this and then I'll pop my thunderclap. Now, on weaker mobs, you're going to kill them pretty much almost instantly with that 1-2 combo. Basically, they're going to be dropping tons of heroic orbs. So then you can just kind of run around and pick them up, and kind of, there's very low downtime with this build on your abilities. And that's kind of the key, because you're taunting, and the exotic, or not the exotic, but the legendary you'll see later on, it'll show that better. Now for the assault heroic Strangle, I basically opted for, it's like a damage field, so it does like a dot. Yeah, I'm still playing around with this one. I mean, you could kind of pick anything here because there's not really anything better. I just prefer this because it's just extra damage passively that can be done to mobs around you. I just like this. And I don't know if Hulk is bugged or whatever, but for some reason on the specialization on the right side, I've had 2 points. Since I don't have the legendary that's going to give me the reduced damage when I taunt, I've been opting for a second charge. But once I get that chest piece or that defensive piece, I'll probably opt for the taunt. The second charge is nice. If I'm low on willpower, I can just pop it, get a pretty good chunk of health back. But yeah, once I get that chest piece, it'll be a little bit easier. For the ultimate heroic, I opted for the ground zero, which is basically going to just help my survivability. It's going to be like a way for me to get health as I'm just sitting there. It's also going to do passive damage as well. The nice thing about it, it performs a vacuum. So like on lesser mobs, it'll pull them in. And so when you kill them while they're your support heroic is up, it's actually going to produce more heroic orbs. And then on the right side of the thunderclap, I opted for taunting. Again, this all revolves around the chest piece that you're going to get that I'll show later. It's actually called the Planet Cracker Alloy. It gives you 15% damage reduction to any taunted enemy. So as you can tell with my passive defense, on top of that, on top of everything else that I'm going to spec for defense, you can see where this is going. Just real beefy, chunky boy. Now, on the mastery side, on this first melee side, this all kind of revolves around the signature grab and using that. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't really use this a whole lot. If I'm going to be honest, I just forget to do it most of the time. So you can kind of pick whatever you want here. I opted for heroic orbs when I do takedowns because with this build also, if there's anything still alive, just start doing a ton of heavy attacks to build up stun, get a couple of takedowns. If there's not already a bunch of orbs around anyways, you can just produce more orbs. As you can tell, it's just going to keep your abilities around longer. The range, I kind of opted for, and I'm still playing around for this left one, back and forth if I want to do the stun. I think I might actually opt in for the stun. I think I actually changed it right here because I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a lot of stun damage. I'm just going to stick with that. I opted for just a general increase in range damage. Again, you can just kind of put this at whatever. You're mainly using heavy attacks, so the range is only really good for drones or something like that. And that's why on this one, this final tree on the right side, for the range, I opted for the excavator, which basically means you pick up rocks quicker, the debris rather, the large and the small debris quicker. So it's a little bit easier to get something in the middle of a fight, throw it at a drone, and just kind of carry on. You don't want to be sticking around too much without doing damage. You kind of want to keep building your rage up. For the intrinsic, I opted for the defensive streak whenever I use rage. Again, if my abilities happen to be on cooldown, I can use my rage to kind of help survive a little while and also get some health back at the same time. So if there is some downtime on my abilities as they're recharging, or maybe I haven't produced a lot of orbs, or maybe I'm in a boss fight, this will help kind of make me more beefy. I've been thinking about trying the Raging Heroics, but I think I might try that in a separate time, but I've just been using the defensive just because, again, it just makes me more chunky, basically. For the middle ability, the damage specialization, I'm using, let's see, the enhanced damage. So basically, yeah, this just enhances my damage. So basically, whenever I'm in range, I do more damage. These other two things just don't really fit for how I play Hulk. So this just made sense to just have a flat damage increase. And then for this final one, I opted for a lower initial cost of triggering rage. Because here's the thing, when you're using rage and you get hit, you're going to have to pop it back up again. So if you keep getting hit or you're not dodging or missing something, you're going to lose a lot of rage, keep initializing it. So that's why for me, it makes more sense to do that because I take a lot of hits. I don't really dodge. I don't really evade. So it just made more sense. Now in the overcharge, I did opt for the higher defensive, just like on the other abilities. Again, this is purely tank. You could definitely play around with these if you want to be a little bit more offensive, maybe spec a little into might or even just more valor. But again, high stun, high defensive abilities. You just want to be the tankiest tanks. I feel like Hulk, honestly, is probably the closest thing that this game so far is going to have as a tank. There's a couple of other ones like Captain America and Ms. Marvel that can kind of do it, but Hulk is just, he's made to tank, basically. He's just made to be a chunky boy. He is a chunky boy. I mean, look at him. He's a big old green guy. But anyways, yeah, so I opted for getting more rage. And I'm playing around with this final tree too. I haven't decided which one I want to go. I've been playing around. So some of these I haven't really spec'd it out completely to find out what works best. It is kind of situational too, because in a boss fight, it's going to be a really longer fight. For your mobbing going through a hive, it might be better to do something, you know, shorter than that. But yeah, let's kind of look at some gameplay here. So the whole setup for this, as you see as I go in here, so you're going to pop your bone shaker. Now what this is going to do is it's going to taunt everything in the area. I immediately go into Thunderclap. You see that 53k? Ridiculous. But see what that does is all these like weaker mobs, it's going to spit out a ton of heroic orbs. So yeah, even though you just burn through your two abilities, one of your two big abilities, you're going to be able to get those back pretty quickly. As you can tell here, I was just mowing through this first room. It's a pretty OP build. Now what I want to talk about next are the items. So the two key items here are going to be this Planet Cracker Alloy, and then the secondary item is going to be the Sacred Norn Stone of Obsidian Spirit. Now the chest piece, the Planet Cracker Alloy, basically gives me a 15% damage reduction from any taunted enemy. So you kind of get where I'm going with this, where I mentioned this earlier about taunting everything and putting all my abilities to taunt. So I'm just going to get an extra 15% on top of my armor, top of my damage reduction from my overcharge or anything else. So again, just making this really, really, really chunky. Now, the major artifact, the Sacred Nornstone of Obsidian Spirit, unfortunately, the only way to get this is if you get level 50 with whichever faction. Doesn't matter, the Inhuman or Shield, but you have to get level 50. These past couple of days I've been grinding. I'm like level 36, I think, maybe, so I'm pretty close. But these two items are going to be the key to making this build like top notch. Like right now I'm pretty survivable, but once I get these, it's going to be like the next level up. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my Hulk Ultimate Tank build. I'm Serrano786. Thanks for hanging out. Please, if you have any ideas for any builds you'd like to see or something else that you maybe want me kind of maybe do a build with some other characters, please let me know in a comment down below. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Serrano786, and I will see y'all later.